Hello, hello. Okay, we are gonna start soon. We have a big topic to cover today, and I'm going to run through it as quickly as I can. Again, it's a topic that is quite heavy, it's quite intense. We got some music going on in the background. I hope you can hear it. I hope you enjoy it. It's some nice calming music. And I'm gonna try and make sure that we run through this pretty quickly. As always, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to drop it in the chat if you catch these live, or if you're watching it later, please leave some comments whenever you can. I would really appreciate it, especially if it's something to do with the topic we're discussing, and I will make sure that I try and reply to your comments as much as I can. Okay. Today's topic is going to be about what happens when we tell the truth. So, of course, we kind of know the real life consequences of telling the truth versus lying, but there are physical, biological, and mental consequences of it as well. I want to do a deep dive today and talk about all of it, but let me first give you a bit of an introduction on where this came from. I don't know if you've heard the song Lemon by NERD. NERD was Pharrell's band from the 90s and 2000s. I think they were active until 2018, which was pretty recent, but when I started listening to them and I first heard the song starts off with an opening line that says, "The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off." And it's probably one of my favorite lyrics ever. It's not quite what got me thinking about today's topic, but definitely is something that replays in my head over and over again whenever I think or talk about telling the truth. But more than that, actually, I recently watched a few different videos and podcast episodes where podcast hosts were interviewing a Harvard sociologist, Dr. Martha Beck, who also happens to be Oprah Winfrey's life coach. And she discusses through a lot of her interviews how lying impacts the body and also your whole life. More specifically on how the body can reveal a lie even if the mind tries to conceal it. A large part of those episodes, of course, also explore her life and her experiences with trauma, coming close to dying, and a lot of other very interesting but heavy topics. I will make sure I put those links either in the description or in the comments below so you can watch them in your own time because they're very interesting. But the important part that really stood out for me and for a lot of these hosts as well, apparently, because they've all made reels and YouTube shorts on it, is this deep connection between anxiety and lying, which, when you think about it, sounds really counterintuitive, and also how our body reacts to deceit, both when we do it ourselves versus hearing it or seeing it. And it often leads to immediate and long-term physical weakness and mental health issues, physical health issues also. During one of the podcasts as well, she does a little exercise where she demonstrates to the host how just a small lie can immediately affect how the physical body works. Like, it immediately diminishes your strength. But why is that and how does it happen? Today we'll explore the truth behind truth, and of course what happens when we lie. I'm going to first break down the lying part, what it does to us, because there's no light without darkness, right? And then we'll compare it to honesty and truthfulness, and then go deeper into talking about being truthful. In addition to a lot of these 2-3 hour podcasts that I listen to, I'm a huge fan of crime shows, murder mysteries, criminal psychology, and those kind of shows, movies, stuff like that, where obviously you come across a lot of lying and deceit and pretense, and you also see a lot of contrasting honest personalities. Plus, through all of it, there's always a victim, there's always trauma, there's always drama. But I'm always curious to figure out the cause and effect of those things. So it's been on my mind for a while, and I recently had the time to do some deeper research on it, and I dug around to understand what's really going on. What I found was very, very intriguing, to say the least. When it comes to telling the truth, honesty has been a massive thing for me for a long time, but when I was a kid, I didn't really see or notice the difference between the two. I also didn't really think people were very smart, which was very stupid of me. But at least I've worked hard to change that about myself, and offer slightly more credit to humanity than I used to. First though, I'm going to summarize some of my findings about lying. And one shocking yet not surprising discovery was its effect on the body. When we lie, it requires a high demand on your body and your mind. In her interviews, Dr. Beck sometimes explains that when someone lies, their body can exhibit physical signs of weakness, such as decline in health, immediate decline in strength, even when you're simply just doing a basic action like extending your arm out. This is due to the physiological and neurological responses that are triggered by the act of lying. In a lot of my own research, lying also seems to cause a lot of other physical ailments. You can actually fall sick, get a sore throat, get headaches, maybe a fever. Depends on what kind of lie you're involved in, how complex it is, what it's doing to you. It also causes a massive increase in overall stress and anxiety. Like how you feel in a panic attack, you have an elevated heart rate, increased blood pressure, sweating. Within your body, there's increased cortisol, there's an increase in general cognitive load. Different parts of the brain undergo heightened levels of stress and activity. And we all know that when your brain gets tired, your body is sure to follow. Of course, this is all very complex. There are a lot of different factors and variables also that are involved in this. It really depends on how elaborate the lie may be, what your internal trauma is or your childhood experiences are, what the emotional situation is surrounding that need for deception or the cause of someone else's deception. But why do we lie? Why do we resort to lying, or why do we automatically just tell a lie? Maybe for a bunch of different reasons. One of them is because we're anxious. Anxiety often leads to lying. It can also be a signal that something is not truthful. A lot of Dr. Beck's work suggests that by understanding this lying and anxiety connection, we can actually learn to listen to that anxiety as a signal of deception, as if someone else is lying, or some kind of signal that we're not comfortable with the situation that has presented itself. To get ourselves out of those situations, sometimes we lie, or we're the receiver and the other person is lying to get out of some kind of anxious or insecure situation. It could also be something deeper. It could be a manifestation of trauma. Trauma plays quite a role in lying. It does also still lead to a heightened state of anxiety. It makes it a lot harder for us to discern the truth if someone is lying to us. And over time, because of that anxiety or that trauma response, we kind of don't know the difference between truth and fiction, whether we're telling the lie or someone else is telling the lie. We also use lying to avoid repeating patterns or try to control those external circumstances that are around us. It's mostly to protect ourselves, which is a very common thing for the brain to do, but also in the long term, it's not really the best response or course of action, because it does validate the anxiety that we're feeling. And over time, it breaks a lot of trust between you and the rest of the world in many, many different ways. Lying could also come from a little bit of peer pressure or people pleasing. Any kind of socialization or social situations can also contribute to lying. Some people may feel pressure to conform to certain expectations, or again, you just want to avoid certain negative consequences. These things were very important for me to realize. When I was young, I used to lie a lot, like when I was a kid. And most of it at that time seemed like harmless lies. Things like where I really was, who I was with, what I was doing. I just didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want my parents to know, stuff like that. I think a lot of it came from feelings of neglect or unhappiness or conflict that at the time I just didn't understand. And I didn't really see the need to be honest about it because I didn't want to be questioned on it. And I just didn't want to get into the depth of things, of what I was feeling or why I was making those decisions. It was just a little after college that I found myself to be deeply unhappy about who I was, what I was doing, people I was spending my time with. And those were all for different reasons, but I also found that the worse I felt, the more I used to lie. And to a certain extent, I had stopped being honest, even if I got caught in a lie, which then made things so much worse. So obviously it ruined things with a lot of my friends, with my family, with people I used to work with. It just caused so much more trouble than it avoided, that one day, I think at the age of like 21 or 22, I had this massive 3-day long breakdown of questioning my entire existence. And I just decided I can't do it anymore. It is just not worth telling these lies. And I had to break out of it. The only way to break out of it is to tell the truth. You can't say you won't lie, but also then not do anything about it or not talk to anybody or just hide things. You have to be honest, both with yourself and then with everybody else. There is a lot of research that shows confronting this trauma and speaking the truth highlights how facing lies, even when it's difficult, can lead to healing and reduced physical pain. The experiences that I mentioned that Dr. Martha Beck also shares, she talks about a lot of evidence of this, but there are also multiple studies. Especially there was one that caught my eye. It was published in December 2015. It shows that lying in general in the long term has deep adverse effects on health, and telling the truth, being altruistic, acting fairly, or being generally, value oriented or virtue oriented, it was directly linked to a number of positive health outcomes, like better general overall health, physical wellness, less stress, decreased cellular aging, better psychological well-being, and in general, longevity of life. Of course, we don't expect anything to be 100% stop, right? It's tough, it's a process. In some moments, I feel people tend to take advantage also of honest, hardworking individuals. So you also want to understand where to tell the truth and how much of the truth to tell. And I feel like if I don't want to explain myself, or somebody has not treated me with much respect and doesn't deserve an explanation, I will withhold information or just tell a white lie in the moment. I hate doing it. And usually if I have lied, I have to go and tell someone else the truth and admit that I have lied in this situation. The guilt I feel from it now is so deep, even with the smallest, stupidest things. And telling the truth, even if sometimes you have to soften the punch that you're giving someone, it just feels so much easier. It just feels better. It just feels like the more sensible thing to do. So what is it about the truth? Even though we've all heard that the truth hurts, even though we all struggle with telling the truth, what is it that makes it so inherently good? There are many different factors that surround this. Of course, what fascinated me the most again about this is the psychological, physiological, and cognitive function standpoint. Truth and honesty are generally associated with lower levels of stress and anxiety compared to lying. Even when we're receiving the truth, the body always keeps score. It knows when something is truthful or not, and you will feel it almost immediately. Of course, sometimes those feelings are very much trauma responses. Sometimes it is correct, sometimes it's not correct. The feelings are still very valid. It's just how you approach that conflict or how you approach that confusion should be something that you should do from a point of honesty or a place of positivity. Telling the truth can also promote a lot of positive emotions and lead to a lot more health benefits like lower blood pressure and increased longevity, like I mentioned before. It also involves a lot of physiological responses, such as certain activity in the part of the brain that's linked to positive qualities, self-evaluation. It's called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or VMPFC. I think I got it right. But yeah, that's what it's called. And there was a study in 2019 that was published in something called Nature Communications. Again, I will try and find the link for it and I will link it to you. But essentially, a lot of this comes from science, from a lot of people staring at MRIs of people's brains and brain activity. And overall, what I've noticed is that all evidence shows that there's relatively less stress and activity in the regions of the brain that are involved in cognitive control when you're telling the truth, especially when it's directly compared to lying, which means, contrary to popular misguided belief and our own anxiety and protection mechanisms that our brain makes, telling the truth is easier effort-wise. There's another study published in September 2015. They concluded that increased frequency in truth-telling over a period of time was associated with better brain activity and connections between different parts of the brain. Of course, the parts of the brain that are engaged in this type of thinking, not just random parts of the brain. It also improved the amount of risk people were willing to take, and even with people who had a very low risk tolerance. That's how I'm going to say it. My notes here are slightly more complicated language. But even with people who had lower propensity to take risk, it kind of improved the amount of risk they were willing to take over a period of time. It also showed that telling the truth feels less emotionally taxing to them and made their overall activity in their amygdala more neutral. Our amygdala is what processes our emotions, our response to stimuli, mainly regulates and processes emotions like fear, aggression, anxiety, in case that was confusing or you didn't know what the amygdala was. So essentially, telling the truth in comparison to lying is overall better for long-term health and cognitive function. It's also a lot less guilt, regret, unnecessary fabrication of stories and memories to handle, and just overall a better way to learn to trust yourself and trust the world and be trustworthy in general. Apart from that, who wants one more reason to make anxiety worse? I feel like the external world does that for us on a daily basis already. So being truthful, which is entirely in your control, which is so rare to find, is not just easier, it also helps with anxiety. It's insane that we have something we can actually control that will in general lead to positive outcomes, and yet many of us feel like lying is better than telling the truth. But of course we can't just flip it on like a light switch. It requires first a strong decision to be made. Same way that you try and quit a bad habit, that's how you have to approach stopping the lying and starting to tell the truth. So obviously requires time and practice. And I don't know, maybe one way to do it is trying to do like a journal. So instead of having a gratitude journal, maybe we should think about having a truth book. Just write down 1 to 3 truths a day that you've been afraid to admit to yourself or someone else, whether it's big or small or whatever. Maybe it's at work, maybe it's not at work, maybe it's some other situation, maybe it's with your gym trainer. Yes, gym trainer, yes, sounds familiar. But maybe it's nice to have that space to practice being honest with ourselves first, so that maybe it's not so daunting when we have to be honest with others. I feel like not telling the truth or lying also has mad consequences at work or with any kind of performance scenarios. It comes in the form of overpromising, saying yes when you haven't really done what you need to, maybe putting somebody else in a bad situation, throwing someone else under the bus just to save your own ass, pretending to be clueless when actually something was your responsibility and you failed. Maybe also lying to yourself about the reward or the lack of reward that you're getting. The lying to yourself will eventually affect you more, of course, than that outward lying, but I feel like it's all interconnected. At work, of course, there are direct consequences, but say maybe you're a high performance athlete or you're playing sport at a competitive level, any level, and you're in competition or in some kind of situation where you do have to practice and you do have to own your skills and you do have to improve on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Lying to yourself, lying to your teammates, lying to your coach, the only person that ends up affecting is you. It'll piss them off, it'll upset them, they will stop trusting you, but the consequence of that, or the outcome from that, the result from that, is that they will stop helping you and you will stop improving and you will stop growing. People are not stupid. People can see the lie. They know when something is false because they lie as well. Or they have lied before. They know what it looks like, what it feels like. They're also very likely watching the same damn office dramas office dramas and true detective type shows as you. So even if you think you're hiding it well, we're all so used to being lied to all the time that it's hard not to know when someone's doing it. You always know. And even if somebody trusts you enough to think that you wouldn't lie to them, they will find out about it at some point. They may not find out specific situations, but they will notice your pattern that you keep lying and keep lying and keep lying, or you keep hiding things, and they will stop trusting you. They will stop looking at you as someone who they can talk to or somebody they can trust to receive information from. Also, I feel like with work, with high performance sport, with relationships, with your family, the consequences are a lot graver in deeper relationships or more commitment requiring situations. Like, say, for example, in the workplace, you will reach burnout faster if you consistently lie. Your body will get weaker, you will get exhausted faster, your mind won't be able to tell the truth from lies for your own self. You will keep running on that false fuel. And I think all those things combined, you're just setting yourself up for failure. The reason behind why I think that we're sure to fail if we keep lying is because when you lie, you learn nothing from it. You can't change anything for the better for yourself when you lie, and like the boy who cried wolf, if you lie too much, nobody's gonna come and save you. In general, no one's gonna come and save you anyway, but maybe there are a few people who have a good heart and they want to come and save you. But if you keep lying, you'll ruin that as well. So why? So what is the truth behind the truth? The worst that can happen with the truth is it'll hurt. Either it'll hurt you or it'll hurt another person. So you'll lose a few things. You might lose some people in your life. Maybe people will get upset. Maybe you realize that your life is way worse than you thought it was. That's a big truth a lot of us have to kind of take on and accept. But that's it. After you tell the truth and face those consequences, however big or small, it's just progress from there. It opens up a lot of new pathways. It opens up a lot of new opportunities for you. It also allows other people to trust you. It allows you to better trust yourself, because now you can see the full picture and there is no doubt. Okay, fine, your life is shit, but okay, now I know that it's shit. I'm not constantly lying to myself and telling myself, oh, it's great, everything's fine, I'm good, this is fine. No. You know how bad it is, and now you know what you have to do. Maybe it increases the amount of things you have to do. Maybe it increases the amount of effort that you have to put in. Maybe it increases the amount of time that you have to be dedicated to something to improve it. But it makes scenarios and situations a lot easier in the long term to deal with. Imagine this is happening at work and you have to tell like a very hard truth to your boss about something you did or didn't do, or a mistake you made, or like a bad situation that's happened. Even if you fucked up, even if you made those mistakes, it allows people to trust you because you've been honest. They will probably give you more responsibility because at least you'll be honest about how things are going. You learn over time to prevent those situations from happening again. Maybe they'll teach you how to do that. And on a larger scale, you learn better ways to seek help, both from within yourself and from other people, and just not keep creating those bad situations for you anymore. You will make sure that you put yourself in situations as well where you don't have to lie. You don't have to lie, and you don't have to constantly try and wriggle out of those bad situations, because you've promised yourself that you're going to be honest. So if you can't be honest about that situation, you'll probably end up not wanting to be in that situation. And you will try your best to get out of it. So the moment you start telling the truth, even if it's just to yourself and you're not ready to tell it outside of you, you will be able to learn a lot more to prevent yourself from being in those bad spots again. You'll dig yourself out of whatever hole you think you're in, and you'll probably find a lot of people will help you. And the more honest you are, the more they'll also be able to see your limitations and where their help can be of benefit to you or not. Apart from personal decision making, you will also become mentally and physically stronger. You will have better immunity, mostly because way less stress. You'll be a lot less anxious, less panicky in bad situations. You will have greater willpower and better brain function when you're making decisions. All of this is there in all those studies that I mentioned, even in people's personal experiences. And if that's not enough, you will just find that you have better relationships with the people that you already know, with your family, friends, whatever, and also with new people that you meet. And apart from that, I really don't think there's much more to say. I feel like telling the truth and being honest just has so many more benefits that outweigh any small or temporary gain that you might get from lying. So why do it? Well, I think that's something for you to answer now. If you really enjoyed this episode, or even if you didn't, please leave a truthful and honest comment for me. I would love to hear what you have to say on this topic or any of the topics that I've spoken about before. And as always, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. And this being the 9th episode, it's very likely that the next episode that we do will be the last one of season 1. So again, thank you so much to everyone who's watched every episode from this season. Thank you so much for staying with me throughout a lot of the longer, more tedious, more difficult episodes. If you try something new, if you try new ways to improve yourself, if you try new ways to make your life better and you'd like to share, I would love to hear it. Please openly share them with me. And if you'd like to start a chat about something that intrigues you, that I may have mentioned or may not have mentioned, you know where to find me. Thanks, and I will see you all very soon.